All right. All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the RANS webinar with Brij Rathi Consultancy. We have two amazing professionals here from Brij Rathi Consultancy, and I will introduce them both. Brij Rathi is himself, and he has been a longtime professional in the food and beverage industry and has transitioned to immigration with his company, Brij Rathi Consultancy. And Mo Blake is the maritime manager of BRC, and he also has a long-standing career in hospitality, opening restaurants. And to introduce the company, we have a short video.
Hotels, restaurants, and other service industry-related businesses in Nova Scotia need experienced staff to fill their open job roles. But following the pandemic, the hospitality labor pool in Canada has been slow to recover. An international recruitment plan is just what you need to radically widen your chances of finding skilled labor. That is why we at Brij Rathi Consultancy work hand in hand as a strategic partner with industry organizations like the BC Restaurants and Food Service Association, and now with the Restaurant Association of Nova Scotia in the Maritimes to help your business recruit from beyond Canadian borders. We will gather international candidates for you, who are selected after a rigorous screening process for immigration eligibility, skills, and qualifications to suit your requirements. All you have to do is recruit from the catalog of experienced staff that we present, including chefs, servers, front and back of house support roles, guest service agents, housekeepers, specialized service team members, and more. The Brij Rathi Consultancy will represent your business through every step of the official formalities and documentation. The selected candidates will be sent over to you with a 2-year work permit, and during this period, they will pursue permanent residency in Canada. Our bilateral efforts with organizations like the BC Restaurant and Food Service Association, and now with the Restaurant Association of Nova Scotia, and other leading Canadian hospitality industry organizations, have served every level of the Canadian hospitality industry. So get in touch today to globalize your recruitment options.
There you go. They did a wonderful job introducing themselves. And so now I will pass the baton over to Brij and Mo.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Hi,
Hey,
guys. So I guess I'll just jump in here and talk a little bit about immigration staffing and Brij's company. My name is Mo Blake. Nice to meet all of you. Thanks for joining us today and giving us a little bit of time to chat with you. Hopefully we're going to do a little Q&A in a bit here, so I'm sure everyone has questions about staffing and the issues around it. I came across Brij through the BC Restaurant and Food Service Association in BC. I've been in the industry and in all sorts of different roles for about 20 years, and manage a hospitality group in Victoria, BC, which is a city very similar to Halifax in its makeup. We have a cruise ship driven hospitality industry around in Inner Harbor, and we have 3 colleges which provide a labor pool in a military base. There's a lot of similarities to Victoria to Halifax, and through that group I watched the shortage of labor really affect those businesses, and the struggle that operators were having. And the BC Restaurant Association put a program together with Brij called Express Entry in BC, and out here it's the Atlantic Skilled Workers program that we're working on. And that program for the 4,000 members of the BC Restaurant Association has been a complete lifeline for back of house roles and for tough to hire positions like management or in the hotel sense, for things like housekeepers, banquets, any of those roles. And last year that to the tune of 2,500 workers in British Columbia kind of shored up a lot of businesses. And because these workers are coming in on a contract for a work permit, which takes 2 years, it gives you a 2-year hiring stability that a lot of operators really need, right? So it kind of helps stop that revolving door in the back of house at times. So having seen this firsthand, I moved to the Maritimes 2 years ago, looking for new opportunities after the pandemic. And Brij and I got together and talked about bringing the program up here. And so one thing I have learned about the Maritimes, just like in BC, it's really important to have someone on the ground in the market that you're in. And so that'll be me here for BRC. And Brij's team is based out west in Edmonton, where they service, across the country. So the Atlantic provinces and then the Western provinces as well. I'll let Brij tell you a little bit more about his business and why he got started on it. But that's the Cole's notes on why I think the program's important and why we exist.
Thanks, Mo. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being here today. And I really appreciate the opportunity to speak a little bit about the program and how we can make a positive impact in your hospitality businesses. So a little background about me. I immigrated to Canada about 17 years ago, and I came here to manage a casino out here in Alberta. And the casino had 6 restaurants, good sized banquet facility, couple bars, and no staff. And I had lived in States just prior to moving to Canada. And before States, I lived in Europe. And when I came here, and I was like, how am I supposed to manage this business if I don't have just staff, like motivated, driven, qualified staff? Yeah, we had some bodies, I would say, but they weren't motivated, or they were least interested in having that job. And so that was the kind of birth of our consulting company, BRC. And having lived in other countries before, I was like, there are people out there in other countries who would be delighted to have these jobs or grateful for this opportunity. And we should create a pathway where we can bring in the qualified, driven employee to good business in Canada. And it's a win-win situation. And it has been amazing success out here in Western Canada. We currently service, like Mo said, we are the exclusive immigration partners for BC Restaurant Association. So any of those 4,000 members have any immigration issue, we get a call and we create a custom plan for them to overcome any immigration challenges. And at the same time, we actively work with over 600 restaurant groups to basically create a custom recruitment and retention plans. Primarily, restaurants struggle to recruit for back of the house roles, line cooks, chef de parties, kitchen supervisors, chefs, management roles like restaurant supervisors, bar supervisors, managers. And on hotel sense, we do work with quite a few hotels as well, light duty cleaners, housekeepers, guest services, general support roles as well, like a shipper, receiver, etc. So one thing that I do want to kind of touch base here right off the go is some of you may have experience with Nova Scotia provincial nomination program. And I was just reading, I was sharing that with Natasha and Daniel earlier today. I just read that because numbers came out yesterday on provincial retention program. So in Canada, it's a parallel process. There are federal programs and there are provincial programs. So when we talk about Nova Scotia, a lot of people talk about the provincial program, and that program is an amazing program to bring in a foreign national into the province, but they generally don't stay. It's only about 40% retention rate, as per the numbers I was reading this morning. So every 100 immigrants who came to Nova Scotia to become landed immigrants, after being landed immigrants, they moved to different province. So there are 60% new immigrants or new workers are moving on in 6 to 12 months after moving into this new province. So that's where I think our program is very unique, because we feel that we should start with the Express Entry Atlantic Immigration Program, which is a federal program. So the worker first comes in with a 2 years working permit. And once they are in Nova Scotia working in your businesses and you're happy with their performance, after about a year, so between 12 and 15 months, you can support them to become landed immigrant through the provincial program. Now, by doing those two pieces, or by employing that strategy, we can almost guarantee that we're going to have 24 to 36 months retention. And at the end of this 24 to 36 months, this individual foreign national becomes landed immigrant to Canada. Now, they can remain in your business. You can employ them in different capacity, pay them different wage, different job title, depending, and that becomes employer-employee relationship at that point. How we work here is our company, BRC, maintains very healthy data pool of qualified driven employees that we pre-screen for immigration eligibility. Our eligibility check basically includes doing the reference check. So whatever they have marked on their resumes that they work for XYZ employers elsewhere in other countries, our team basically cross-references that and ensures that everything is true and accurate. We also get them to provide us with the credential assessment of their education. Most these candidates, they come with either 2 years culinary diploma if they're coming in as a chef, or 2 year hospitality diploma if they're coming in as a front of the house candidates. We get them to undergo an English test, and they have to score a minimum of minimum requirement is 5 points, which is translates into they can perform the job duties in English environment without or very minimal mistakes. So they, in other words, they can read, write, speak, and understand English. In addition to that, we also conduct the medical check to ensure that they're healthy enough to, and they're not, threat to Canadian public health, and they're healthy enough to perform the job that they're coming in for, and criminal record check to ensure that there is no criminal history there. Once they fit all those requirements, they enter BRC data pool. So, and we maintain about 80 to 100 qualified people in our data pool at any given day. Now, when we work on behalf of any business as a recruiter, our recruitment team will set up a call with you to go over your requirement. They even do a bit of online research about location, where your business is currently operating in, and as well as your menus, etc. And then they shortlist candidates for you to interview on a Zoom video call. So it would be no different than like what we have right now, except you will be interviewing candidates on one-on-one basis. So we generally set like 5 or 6 pre-screen qualified candidates, and our interview coordinators basically set up the Zoom interview call with you, where you have opportunity to speak with individuals, and all the profiles get sent to you a day or two in advance, so you have a chance to review the profiles, and you speak with them and interview them just like you would interview any other candidate in person. At the end of this interview session, once you have made up your mind that you like 1 or 2 or 3 candidates out of the interview session, then we take care of all the paperwork. So we basically deal with the federal government on your behalf to obtain a labor market impact assessment. Some of you may have some experience in obtaining LMIAs. It can be a lengthy process, and we try to reduce workload on your piece, and our team is very robust, and this is what we do day in, day out. So the effort on your part is minimalistic. And we also, once the LMIs are approved, we work with the foreign nationals on getting their work visas. So we act on foreign nationals' behalf. We speak with the Immigration Refugee Agency of Canada in their current home country. So we deal with the Canadian Embassy in their home country. And once they're all approved and their passports are stamped, you get an email from our team confirming that the individual you had interviewed are now approved, and they're copied on this email, and you can instruct them when they can travel to Canada to start the employment with you. Now, when they enter Canada at the airport, border agent will issue them 2 years working permit, and that would be exclusive work permit that would have your business name on it. So in other words, they're full-time employee of your business, and they can't work for any other employer unless they go through the whole process again and change the company. So you have, in other words, you basically have a driven, motivated employee for at least 24 months. And more likely, if we go through the federal to provincial program, I believe the retention can be between 24 and 36 months. So that's the program in a nutshell. And I would love to, kind of open it up now and if you can ask me any questions you may have about the program, or if you have experience using the provincial or federal program, and I would love to hear from you about how was your experience and what were the challenges and successes in your experience.
If I could just jump in real quick there, Brij. I'm not sure if it cut out for everyone else, but for me, we were talking about, you were mentioning the database. It's 80 to 100,000 candidates that are screened, correct? Not 80 to 100?
No. So it's basically, we have tens of thousands of candidates.
That's right.
But we have 80 to 100 ready to go, pre-screened, vetted, ready for interview.
There you go. Yeah, sorry, I just couldn't hear you, and it clipped out on my end, so I apologize.
So they're ready to interview, and that's what I was saying. Like when we set up the Zoom interviews, we like to set up 5 or 6 in one session, but we could have several sessions of those.
Yeah.
Until they have found the right candidates.
There you go. Sorry, I just couldn't hear it. It's probably my years of working in the bar. I'm a little deaf too, so hopefully everybody else understands that. Hey, so we have Jordy, Karen, and Matthias on the call with us here, Brij, and I thought I would just ask if I could go around and ask maybe Jordy first, if you would tell us a little bit about your business and if you currently work with any immigration staff, and then I'll ask Karen and Matthias after that. So hi, Jordy, how are you? I'm Mo, nice to meet you.
Good, Mo. Actually, I just signed on. I'm the new Atlantic VP for Restaurants Canada.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so I was talking with Natasha about this. We have, I mean, there's obviously an issue for our members as well. So she said that she was going to be talking to Brij about this, and I thought it would be a good opportunity just to hear what the offering was.
Awesome.
I'm talking to operators all the time, so, and many of them are facing the same kind of challenges. The only questions that I had, Brij, is just, I know that this is for a restaurant. You're doing this through RANs, and so is this, do you have like some sort of a specific offering for RANs, or is this available for anybody who are operators? And I guess that's a question for you too, Natasha. I don't want to be poaching your vendor here, so.
I'm okay for Brij to answer that one.
All right.
So Jordy, thank you so much for the question. What we are hoping to establish here is similar what we have out here in West Coast with the BC Restaurant Association. So with the RANs, we are hoping that we offer something exclusive to their members with the discounted rate. With that said, of course, we are here for the industry, and we are here to help out any restaurateur in the country. So we would love to have those conversations and see how we can, assist the other restaurant or food service businesses, because quite frankly, we all need help, and we have some resources, and we can create that pathway for any restaurant or any food service businesses. Fees may be a little different depending on volumes, because RANs has exclusive negotiated fees in place. But with that said, if Natasha, you're okay with that, we could have those conversations on side, obviously.
Sure. Like my concern was less on fees and more on access. The other question I had for you is, a lot of operators are finding themselves going to immigration lawyers, or some of them do it themselves. Some have expertise with LMIAs. There's lots of stuff around the Atlantic immigration program that is unique to that. There's pluses and minuses in there. So have you got some familiarity working with the AIP? And do you have familiarity working with the Atlantic landscape, if you will, as it stands?
So we have, sorry, can you hear me okay?
Yep, I'm here.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it cut out for a second. So we have worked with AIP in PASH. So our experience, Jordy, quite frankly, in terms of AIP, it's quite a bit of work on employers' part when it comes to AIPs. And in the end, the employers, they would want to see some retention by putting in so much extra work. And therefore, we are suggesting that here we start with LMIA program. And once the candidate is here working in the business, after about 12 to 15 months, start the AIP process. So business operator and owner, they are in confidence that they are getting reward for the time put in and investment put in the process. Because
Yeah,
speaking
the feedback we're getting on this is that there's some stickiness problems with the AIP, and that wasn't the intention of it. And I think that the landscape generally, even in terms of federal allotments and everything else, has changed. But getting feedback that the LMIA process ends up, I think, with a more favorable outcome than in terms of retention, because retention is, it's hugely important. I mean, the list of issues is 100 miles long, but it's yeah. The only other question I have in here, are your rates, I would presume, are competitive with immigration lawyers that are doing this stuff independently?
Yes, absolutely. So we represent about 25% of LMIs in Canada. So we are a lot larger in terms of volumes. And because of our volumes, we are able to offer the pricing and the flawless process that we do, because there are about 5,400 companies in Canada right now who can basically support any LMI process for any businesses. But most of these companies are general practice. So where if you're automotive shop and you phone in and say, hey, I was looking to hire light duty mechanic, they would take that piece of business, they would take the baker's business, and they would take a hairstylist business and everything in between. Now, what changes here is because they have limited experience in dealing with that industry. So they don't maintain the data pool like we do, because we are exclusive to hospitality and food service businesses. And second is our in-depth experience working with the industry and working with the government agencies. So that sets us apart when how we compare with the other businesses who might be offering similar services.
Okay. Hi, Karen.
Hi, Karen. How are you?
I'll leave it there so I'm not monopolizing the conversation.
And Jordy, I'm going to reach out to you offline, and let's have a coffee and chat about what Restaurants Canada is doing on here too, and we can all connect.
Sure.
Great. Hi, Karen. Awesome. Karen, your mic's on mute, I think.
That helps, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, there you go.
Yeah, thanks again to RANS for offering these webinars. You folks really do keep your hand on the pulse, and we appreciate all you do.
Thank you for that feedback. That's lovely. Thank you.
Well, because we don't see each other a lot and passing out and all of that, but it's actively appreciated.
Oh, thank you.
So my name's Karen Spalding. I'm the owner of the Carlton, which is a small restaurant in Halifax. Mo, not quite RCR.
No, but we've met before at the Jesse Roper concert. I chatted with you up front, and I know. Yeah, there we go. Right there, you are.
Text.
Yeah, that's right. And
Old home week here. Nice.
Oh gosh, Dave. Yeah, your partner that used to work for Much Music in the Carlton.
Oh, Mike. Yeah,
Mike. That's right. Yeah, there we go. Sorry, Mike, Dave.
No,
very close.
Mike, Dave.
There you are.
I just want to say that, like, Mo's literally been living here for like a hot second, and he just knows everyone. So unbelievable.
But he's so much better than me, for example, in that he actively introduces himself and actively scopes out the community. So it's great and great connection with Brij as well.
Your favorite place to see a live show in Halifax so far is the Carlton Club. Can't go wrong. See some great stuff there. Yeah. Do
a little advertising. So you may well get a chance to talk to Matthias as well, but Matthias is our executive chef.
Oh,
so
great.
We feel like a very rarefied audience here since we nominated it. But we've got a kitchen staff that varies between 4 and 5, front of house staff, maybe between 10 and 15. And we've been very fortunate in hiring. We recently went through some challenges because some longtime kitchen staff chose to move on for a variety of reasons, a lot of them relocating. And we went through normal processes, found that applications were coming in, particularly from Indeed, got a lot. But as you can well imagine, a lot of them were from overseas or required some support in order to be able to work here. we actually solved our problem, but it got us thinking that even as a small provider, we might have to start paying attention to supporting workers from overseas. The other two situations that have, I shouldn't say two situations, but situations that have come up, which we want to learn more about, is we've had foreign workers here on student visas, because of course they're attracted to the hospitality industry. And as they move away from that into full time and are looking to get support for landed immigrant status, the Carleton would be someone that they would come to for verification, and happy to do that. This much understanding of what that actually takes, both from a documentation perspective and any type of commitment for long-term support. So the student visa is one thing, and then Chef may be able to speak to this, but we've also hired kitchen workers who are here on visa already, and then is there going to be an ongoing support required?
I mean,
so,
you know, Argyle Street's a pretty active labor market, and you know, I've chatted with different friends that manage down there and operators that are down in that area, and you know, one thing you guys are probably seeing too is how competitive that market is. If you've got, you know, an employer that's short on staff, maybe they're offering a little bit more money one day, and I've seen people leave a kitchen, you know, literally quit and walk down the street and get hired, you know, for better money, or you know, for whatever reason they're not fitting in one place and they're literally able to move next door, which is, you know, good for the employer. It's definitely an employee's market, you know.
yeah, absolutely. And it's incumbent upon us to offer, I believe, different things than a pure cash play, because that's a mug's game, right?
Well, especially if you're a smaller operator, you know, I think
so that's a whole other thing. But again, when this webinar popped up, it was really a chance to, we're hoping just to be introduced to some of the acronyms, Brij, because there's enough of those, and just start to understand some of the players before we were doing our own homework as well. So I honestly don't think I have specific questions. I do like the concept that you put forward, and that is get your visa established, get the relationship going, and then make this longer term commitment. I think that's potentially win-win for everyone. And we'll be very interested to see what kind of offer you can put forward with RANS, with the relationship with RANS, to make it within our reach from a cost perspective, because that's one of the decisions as well. I certainly know sometimes in the long term you get burned by doing it yourself, but it's also hard for us to add another cash outlay on the recruitment process.
Yeah, and I do want to speak to that a little bit, Karen. So like I was mentioning earlier, we work with over 600 restaurant groups. Some are one unit, some are several units, some are nationwide, some are publicly traded companies. And so we totally get it. I'm a restaurateur myself, so I should put that forward here as well. I didn't become immigration guy and started serving restaurants. I was restaurant guy to start with, who experienced what you're experiencing today. When I first came to Canada, I was like, I can't manage here without having the right staffing. That got me started because of having lived in different countries. I was like, we have to create a pathway. It's not like we are out of people in this world. We are out of people in this country and this region. So if we create the right pathway, at the same time, I understand restaurant P&Ls, they're very cost sensitive because margins are not that great. Who could take thousands and thousands of dollars of legal fees just because now we have to do a couple visas. And therefore, we have created a model that would be very affordable for any restaurant group. And how we try to do it is, if you look at our costing, it's $1,800 per candidate. Out of $1,800, $1,000 goes to the government, because government will keep that money. It's a federal government fees. And $800 is something that we keep to put together paperwork, as well as representing you with the government agency and talk to the government agency and everything like that. And we take care of the whole recruitment piece as well. Now, these employees, they work 2,000 hours if you do 40 hours a week, 52 weeks, 2040 hours to be precise. Now they come with 2 years working visa, so that's 4,000 hours. So we wanted to keep it under 50 cents an hour. And we have been very successful in keeping that way, because once you incorporate that in your P&L, that actually works out to be less than your turnover, like your training cost, hiring cost, Indeed, posting job ads, etc. And so yeah, I can basically, tell you that what I'm hearing from my restaurant operators is not only this is a very cost-effective program, but it actually increases their bottom line, because now they're not paying the overtime, they don't have enormous training costs, as well as Indeed can be expensive. I mean, we were hiring for front of the house manager in one of my restaurant, and bill was $600 when we ran a couple weeks ad. And I was like, if I had to do that couple more weeks, that's my $1,800 right there, And plus,
Yeah,
I don't get any
thank you very
retention.
much for saying those numbers out loud. That gives us a lot of context.
Yeah.
I just want to jump in and say that price is a discounted rate for RANS members. And that's something that we're really focused on at BRC in BC and in the Maritimes, is in providing a value to the membership organizations that we partner with. We think the work that RANS does is critical to the industry, and also Restaurants Canada. So on this call, the industry organizations like those groups, the BCRFA, ABLE, we saw this through the pandemic. Without those groups, our industry wouldn't have had the voice that it did to help stabilize and keep people open, employed, keep leases in place. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So our focus will be on kind of supporting those groups working within those frameworks. So, the discounted rate is the first way we can do that. Sorry, Brij, I just thought I would mention that.
Yeah, no, that's great. And thank you for doing that, Mo. Other thing, Karen, we believe in creating partnerships. So we are not those companies and that showcases through the entire pandemic period, where BCRFA members needed some support and immigration help and stuff. And we are not trying to invoice them for our consulting hours. But we realized that, okay, this is pandemic, and this is everybody's first pandemic. Like, nobody's experiencing dealing with pandemic. So yeah, we jumped in, we helped out as much as we could. And then how we see reward now is some of those members that we helped out at no cost during those times, now they are our long-term clients on immigration side. So we believe in creating those sort of partnerships where we are not always knocking on a door to collect fees, but we create a custom. Now, the plan we may create for you would be totally different than plan we may create for Westin Waterfront, for example, because the need is different, the resources are different, the problems are different. So we like to be those extended partners who would create the custom pathway and custom solution to your businesses, and create a long-term solution, not just a quick fix and band-aid fix.
Yeah. Hey, Karen, while I've got you and Matthias on the line, I give you guys a little pro tip that I like to give to a lot of operators when we're chatting with them. One thing that you can do, even if you're not hiring right now, is you can start the process and you can get yourself set up in the systems. And that's something that BRC can help you with. No obligation, no charge, where we help get people, we can have our team get you basically set up in the system, right, Brij? We'll have them lined up and ready to go.
Yeah. So it's basically how I like to say it in easy words is, let's create your profile with the government. Now, creating this profile doesn't cost you anything, doesn't mean you're obligated to hire. It only means that now you cut back 60 days in process. So when you're ready, you don't have to worry about those mandatory waiting period, because there's a mandatory waiting period of 30 days after creating your profile with the federal government, because federal government expects you to leave the job open for 30 days for any Canadians to apply. Now, obviously, we wouldn't be even talking and we wouldn't be even having this webinar if we didn't have that problem. Of course, we have that problem. And if you were able to hire locally, then, we wouldn't be going through that lengthy process. But so I always like to cut back that 30 to 60 days time. And then at later date, if you feel that, hey, Brij, that's fine. We are okay. And I have stable staffing in my kitchen right now. No big deal. That's okay.
Yeah, but it's a good way to at least get yourself set up. And then, the other thing you can do at that point too is when Matthias is looking to hire the next time, he can look at the resumes that he's got here in town, and then we can also talk with him about candidates that we have in our pool. And he can interview a couple of them even if he wanted to as well. That our fees and charges don't happen until the person is hired. Right. So there's no charge to get set up, and there's no charge to interview people or ask questions or get information. And obviously we're here to support RAN's membership. So if people have questions outside of that, we're happy to hop in and help them understand the industry. Right. So.
Thanks, Mo. No, I think that's a crucial point there. No, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Smarter than I look. Karen, you were talking about student visas, and I want to go back to that because it's something that I've heard a bunch in Halifax, and I know it's not the specialty as far as the LMIAs and the AIPs and all the programs that we're talking about, but Brij, I do know, and actually our friend down at the Marriott waterfront was talking to us about student visas as well. Is that something that you guys have seen in your experience, and how to extend those people to stay immigration wise afterwards? Is that something that you're aware of?
Oh yeah, we do that all the time, Mo. Even out in Victoria and Vancouver, because Victoria has a similar landscape when it comes to students. I always say this though, when you assist a student with the immigration paperwork, your retention will be about half than what you would get from the overseas person, because the student has now permanent residency system in Canada. When it comes to federal, it's a point-based system. So most times students have accumulated enough points and they just need the final push from having this job. That means be prepared. You may have this person quitting the job in 6 to 12 months after giving them that support. Now that's a decision. It's in the employer's hand. And I just always like to make them aware, like this could happen to you. So if you're putting in upfront investment of time and money, you may have this person quitting in 6 months. Oh no, they're not going to go anywhere. We trust them. Everything's fine. Okay, fine. I'm not judging anyone here. All I'm just saying is, I don't want you to come back and say, hey, Brij, why didn't you tell me that I might lose my investment in 6 months, so.
Yeah, and I think part of what we're trying to understand is what that investment is. The particular example that I'm thinking of is someone who has been with us for a couple of years, is graduating, and so part of it is an acknowledgement of the relationship that has existed in the past, with a recognition that there is risk of leaving, but we're still not familiar enough even with the process and what it's going to take in terms of time and resources. So yeah, it's all part of the education process.
Right. And that could be case by case unique situation, because we don't know exactly if they need the AIP support or LMIA support and where they stand and everything. But on your part, on employer's part, you're looking at in that range between 1,800 and 2,500, kind of a ballpark range, which we can give you exact specific code once we look at the situation and what we need to do.
Yeah, and it's important to remember that those numbers, a big chunk of that is federal fees. Yeah, the lion's share belongs to that. And, just so that there's full transparency too, the workers that come here pay fees, to have their stuff processed as well, right? So it goes both ways. This is what the employer fees are, and so that'll be all you're responsible for. If you do hire workers from other countries, skilled workers, you're not responsible for their transportation here, and you're not responsible for any accommodation or anything while they're here in town. They're just like any other employee. So that's important to note when you write your budget. You don't have to worry about things like staff housing, things like travel. That it's that employees' responsibility to get to work and to be available to work in the area as they work towards their permanent residency or the program that they're on.
Excuse me. Yes.
Mo, if I might jump in here,
Hi, Matthias, how are you?
Good. How are you, Mo?
Good.
But that brings a good question forward too, and it's I understand that no one other than the employee in this case is responsible for all of that: transportation, accommodation, and everything in between. But does BRC offer some sort of support for these workers?
Yes.
Because that transition phase is something very critical as well. So
Yeah.
I'm just thinking in terms of it's one thing to review these resumes and have these interviews, do the research, but employment sometimes it just doesn't work out. And what happens if it doesn't?
Sure. Yeah, so there's two questions there, and I'm gonna if I can, Brij, I'll start and then I'll kick it to you, if that's all right. So
Yeah.
outside of being the Maritimes, one of the reasons I think BRC does the best job at this skilled worker piece in Canada is that in every market, BRC has set up kind of a coordinator, right? And that coordinator, they're there to, for lack of a better term, handhold the relationship and make sure that that employee is comfortable, right? So they'll help them search for housing, and that's really important in a hot housing market like Halifax. They'll help them set up things like bank accounts and financial, any financial stuff they need while they're here, right? Social insurance in Canada, any of those issues. So we are, an industry leader in that. I think it's one of the reasons that Natasha and Danielle were happy to partner with our company is that we focus on the ethical aspects of this. We make sure that the relationship is strong, not from the day that you hire, but from the day that relationship ends, right? You have to support the process all the way through from top to bottom, front to start. So that's super important to us as a company. With regards to your comment about employment not working out, it does happen. It's a very rare thing, actually, in our experience. I'll let Brij speak to the exact numbers of this, but it's a very low number. And part of the reason of that is because if you use the LMIA program, people are working towards their permanent residency over a period of time. And usually they're looking to support and bring their family to Canada, and that gives them a great motivation. It's the best bonus you could ever offer an employee, in my opinion, as a Canadian, is Canadian citizenship, right? So they're coming to work every day to make a better life and working really hard to get down that pathway. So Brij, maybe you can speak to a little bit about some of the experience you've had with people leaving when they leave the program.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So there are two things we are talking about here. It's the legal obligation. So legal obligation to provide them transportation, housing, airport pickup, all of that is zero, nothing. But then there is something called right thing to do. And right thing to do is like when I'm immigrant myself, and I understand when you're in a brand new country, and it would be nice to have support. And that's exactly what we try to do. And it's not obligation on our part, but we understand that it's the right thing to do. And we have, just like Mo said, we have arrival coordinators on ground. And these are, most of the time, these are these individuals we brought in the country a few years ago. And now they're established and Canadian citizens, and they find not only, of course, they get paid for this work, but not only they're doing this work for money, but fulfillment, because now they get to help the newcomers and answer some of those questions firsthand that they experienced maybe 5 or 10 years ago. And so we offer them free airport pickup. So this individual will pick them up, the new guy, talk to them about life in Canada or life in Nova Scotia or Halifax, etc. Take them to bank to open a bank account, Service Canada to get their SIN number, as well as a system. And so the connection happens before they actually arrived in the country. So our coordinators from the office would make that connection beforehand when they got their passports back from the Canadian embassy, and they start talking about what's their budget like, if they're coming alone or whether they have partners, etc., all that good stuff. And then the arrival coordinator on ground would supply them with the information, say, these are the housing available, these are the classified ads, take a look. If you like some of this, I can go talk to the landlord, I can give them a call, etc. Do you want me to kind of, ask them to reserve one for you, all that kind of good stuff. And then they come here, they settle down, and the connection generally stays even few weeks later, or sometimes even several months later, where they kind of, this is their first buddy in Canada. So they still kind of, there is no kind of ending relationship here. So they can always, chat with them on a messenger. They can call in our office. We offer full support through the office as well as on ground with the coordinator. And so generally it works out that way. We also encourage them to be part of the groups on social media, on Facebook groups and stuff like that. So they generally find friends that way as well, because we are in transplanting human business, and it's always a hard thing to do. So we try to, another thing we offer them is a free online course. It's called BRC Online Academy, where it's broken down into 4 modules that assist them basically establishing and integrating themselves into Canadian life, how to establish yourself financially, culturally, and at work. And it talks about, do's and don'ts. It talks about all that kind of good stuff. And at the end of this online course, there is a multiple choice test. Once they pass the test, they get actually a certificate issued by BRC as well. So none of this is our obligation. We do all those things because we genuinely want these people to be established and be good Canadians down the road once they get their permanent residency and Canadian citizenship. Now, second piece is that you asked was, what if they don't work out? Now, it doesn't happen that frequently, like most, right? Very rarely it would happen, because this is not just a job, but it's a pathway for them to basically create a beautiful life for themselves and their family. So they take these jobs very seriously. With that said, yeah, it happens every once in a blue moon, a couple times a year kind of thing. In that case, your obligation as a Canadian employer would be same as you would have hired a Canadian worker. So again, it's case by case. If someone's drinking on the job or someone's stealing from the company, most companies have zero tolerance policy. And so you as a Canadian employer can exercise disciplinary action process up to termination. If termination happens, we ask you keep us posted so we can keep the government informed that this individual is no longer associated with this company. And as a peace of mind, what we also offer as a BRC, because they come with a 2 years working permit, 24 months, we guarantee the first 12. So anything happens in first 12, we offer you replacement and we take the cost. Anything happens between 12 and 24, it's a lost investment on your part. So we try to meet you halfway, but it doesn't happen that frequently. I mean, I would say 4 or 5 cases a year that termination happens, right?
Yeah, 4 or 5 cases out of,
thousands.
We did 2,500 chefs and back of house workers in BC last year. So it's not a regular thing, but it's definitely a question we get asked every single time we go through the process. So there you go. Does that answer your question, Matthias?
Yeah, no, it definitely does. Thank you. Thank you for that. And it was I'm an immigrant myself, so I understand all the motivation behind that. It's just, again, we're talking about people, so sometimes it just doesn't, even if everything aligns, sometimes it just doesn't work. So it's always good to know what options are there and what the pathway would be as a backup plan, essentially. So thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem. Karen, I'm going to come and chat with you one day about the staff piece that you're talking about, because I don't know a lot about the student process and hiring afterwards. That's something that Brij's team knows about. So I'd love to hear about your specific issue and maybe learn a little bit as I go, if that's all right.
It is. I think what I've shared today is the sum total of the sharing available at the moment. We've been approached by one of our staff members to potentially help out, so we're figuring it out. So maybe give us a little bit of time, and I might be more useful.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, and we're here if you have questions along the way, can do some resources that way. Danielle and Natasha, if I may, do you guys have any questions that you think would be valuable for maybe some of the other folks that we've talked about in the past that we could answer? Just, I know we had a number of registrations today, and I think it's holiday season and all the other good stuff. So some people weren't able to make it. I just thought I know we're recording this. So while we have Brij, we could ask a few more questions if you wanted.
Yeah, I'm off mute. So I feel like I should ask questions, because why would you not ask questions? But any questions, I had a couple written down that got asked, which is great. I think you did a super job going through how things work with your organization, the partnership that we're entering into, and yeah, I honestly, Danielle, if you have anything, go for it. But anything that I want to make sure we touched base on today, you did. So thank you. I know we're going to share the recording. Would you be open though, because we had some folks that signed up today that couldn't attend. Are you open to some questions from folks if they do review the recording today and have some follow-up questions? Yeah.
Sure. Well, and I think anybody, anytime is welcome to reach out to us, through RANS. And I'm here to have a coffee with them in town, or they can email Brij directly, and we'll figure it out to support the membership the best we can. Is that all right, Brij?
Unknown caller. Sorry about that. I did have one question about documentation you might have on process, timeline, cost. Just so that you have sort of a reasonably clear picture of for somebody who wants to enter the process. And there's going to be varying degrees of expertise that each operator has, but just having an idea of process, timeline, and cost, I think would be helpful in any decision making around whether they want to enter into an agreement with you.
Okay, so Jordy, the process can take there are two steps in the process, obviously. First one is the LMIA process that goes through Service Canada here in domestically here in Canada. Current process, it varies. Current processing time as of today is 8 to 9 weeks with Service Canada. I've seen it as little as 2 weeks. I've seen it 12 weeks. So anywhere in between. So I would always quote between 2 and 3 months for Service Canada piece. And getting their passport stamped for foreign national in overseas. Again, it depends where they are. Again, depends on their profile. Like, for example, if there was an individual who is 22 years old, had only one job, the visa would be a lot faster for that person because there's only one background check for the immigration officer. And versus you had someone who is 33 years old, had 4 different jobs in 4 different countries. Typically speaking, it takes longer for visa officer to go through that background check. Again, summarizing everything between 2 and 3 months. So to me, it's right to say between 4 and 6 months would be the processing time.
Yeah, I think I wasn't looking for specifics on this. I just think it's the expectations that people have going into something like this. There are lots of people who have been doing it, and they'll weigh their own experience about doing it themselves against the idea of having somebody do it for them, for example. Or if there are people that have used other consultants in the past, how does that change in terms of using your service versus somebody else's? Just some context there would be helpful. I'm sure it will over a period of time we'll be able to drive something out of this. But I'm again, it's not for me. I'm not in the same position Karen's in. I'm simply looking to provide ideas and whatnot for people who are coming to me and saying this is a problem on that.
For sure. And one tip I always kind of talk about to operators, people always like to time things, and which is of course the right thing to do. But when it comes to government processes, you will never win, right? So I always say that, like, start the process as early as possible.
I understand.
You're not gonna have these workers knocking on your door at inconvenient time, because once they get approved, it's very structured approach. And when they're approved, we ask them not to quit their current jobs until they have confirmed start date from their Canadian employer. So let's say we had worker approved on Christmas Eve. Now that worker most likely is not going to be needed until mid-Feb, for generally speaking, for restaurants, because they're not looking to bring in a new person to train in slowest time of the year. Naturally, we don't want this person to quit their current job. So that's where that email goes out to the employer with the worker copied on and say, XYZ is approved, they're copied on this email. Please provide the instruction when they can plan to arrive into Canada to start employment with you. And if you provide at that point, like, okay, we will need you by second week of April, plan accordingly, nobody's losing anything, because the time starts the day they arrive at the Canadian airport, because the border agent will print the permit from that day till 24 months and period. So 1st of April 2024 to 1st of April 2026, for example, if that was the case, right? And so rather than trying to time something that we can't really control, why don't we plan ahead and then bring the workers in when we need them, kind of thing, and that has been successful with my other restaurant operators. And I always suggest that this is probably the best way to go. And
Jordy, I'll just tell you too, we've created a website with RANS called hiredskillworkers.ca. So you can go there, or you can, if you have people that are asking questions, you're looking to direct them towards a resource. That's online, and it's got kind of the basics. It's got that video that we watched at the beginning, and it's got some just basic understanding what the program is and a way to contact us directly. So that's a great tool right now. We're going to be updating that all the time with more resources and things like that.
Or more, I mean, if that's okay with you, maybe you can follow up with the email with all that info and links.
Yep.
And then
I'm going to reach out to everybody. You're all going to hear from me. we'll all say hi. So I'll make sure everybody's got all the information they need. And if anyone ever has any further questions or you get stuck at any point of the process, please reach out to us. And we're looking forward to being a great partner, teammate, however we can support you.
That's awesome. Thank you. I mean, we can't thank you enough for taking the time today to do this session. And Mo, Brij, what I really appreciate is how much time you put aside to answer questions, and thank you for being so receptive and to listening and answering all the questions, and we really appreciate that. So
yeah,
anytime.
Thanks to everyone for coming out today, and looking forward to getting down to Chef's beer dinner here one of these days. I've seen the beer competition that he's putting on down. Gonna have to come and see you.
They're so good. I always have fun when I go.
Oh man, can't wait.
Thanks for holding the start for us. Chef and I were both in another Zoom call that ran a little late, and so really appreciate you accommodating us.
No worries.
No problem. All
Brij,
right.
final thoughts here.
You asking me? Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry, I don't know if that.
Oh no, I just wanted to thank Natasha and Danielle for setting this call up and hosting the Zoom call. And thank you everyone for attending. Feel free to reach out to me or Mo anytime with any question. Like I said, we believe in creating partnerships, and sometimes you don't need our services until later date. That's totally fine. If you have a question, don't hesitate. Please call.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Thank you so much, everyone. Hope you have a great rest of the day.